all humans naturally desire to know.
Yeah, that's Aristotle right at the start of the Metaphysics. It's just such a powerful line. And he says, the proof is how much we value our senses, especially sight.
Because sight tells us about differences instantly.
Exactly. It gives us knowledge.
And that desire, that's why we're here. Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, the foundations of knowledge itself. We're using insights from Aristotle's Metaphysics, which is famously tricky stuff, translated from the original ancient Greek, of course.
And our goal really is to show this isn't just some dusty old text. It's kind of a blueprint for how we still think about knowledge.
Right, and just a bit of context on Aristotle himself. He was Plato's student for, 20 years?
20 years, yeah, at the academy. Then he went off and started his own school, the Lyceum.
And they called them the Peripatetics, the walkers.
That's the story, yeah, because they'd often discuss philosophy while walking around. Kind of nice, actually.
Okay, but here's the crucial thing about this text, the Metaphysics. It wasn't really a polished book he published, was it?
No, not at all. It's basically a collection of 13 different books, or maybe booklets, and it was put together much later, like centuries later, by Andronicos of Rhodes.
And lecture notes.
Yeah.
And manuscript rolls.
Pretty much, yeah. From Aristotle's own notes and maybe student notes, too. It's amazing it survived.
And the structure, you were saying, feels quite modern.
It really does. I mean, think about academic papers today. He starts with a literature review, what others have said. Then he points out the problems, the gaps.
Okay.
Then definitions, super important. Then the main theory, the body of the work. And finally, a conclusion. It's all there.
Even if it was compiled later, the whole thing seems driven by one big question.
Absolutely. The search for first, causes and principles. What is reality fundamentally made of? And how can we actually know it?
That's the mission then. Let's dive in.
Okay, so to get at how we know reality, Aristotle first looks at how humans differ from animals. He sets up this kind of hierarchy of understanding.
Animals, they operate mostly on, impressions and memory?
Right, like they hear a sound, they get an impression, they remember certain things lead to others, but it stays at that level. Humans, though, we move beyond that.
We create craft technique and we use reasoning.
Exactly. And this difference between mere experience and actual craft is key to his whole system. So,
experience. How does he define that?
Experience comes from having lots and lots of memories about the same kind of thing. His example is like a doctor.
Okay.
This particular medicine helped Callias when he was sick like this, and then it helped Socrates and maybe a bunch of other specific people. That's experience knowing particulars.
Got it. Specific cases, but craft is different.
Yeah, craft or techne is when you take all those specific memories and you form a universal judgment. You go from this helped Callias to this remedy helps everyone who has this specific type of illnesses, like a certain kind of fever.
So it's moving from the particular to the universal. You see the pattern.
Precisely. You understand the general rule, not just the individual instance.
And that leads to wisdom, Sophia.
It does, because, Aristotle argues, the person with the craft, the artisan, is actually wiser than the person who just has a ton of experience. Even if the experienced person gets things right sometimes.
Why is that?
Because the artisan knows the causes. They understand why the remedy works universally. The experienced person might just know that it worked in the past.
So wisdom isn't just knowing facts, it's knowing the reasons behind the facts, the first principles and causes.
That's the core of it. And then he takes it even further. He says there's another level.
Which is?
He distinguishes between practical, productive knowledge, like building something, and theoretical knowledge, knowledge gained through pure contemplation.
And he ranks theoretical knowledge higher.
He does. It's a pretty bold claim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about the universe is somehow superior to, say, building a bridge.
Yeah, that sounds controversial, maybe?
Well, his example is mathematics. He suggests math emerged in places like Egypt, partly because the priests there had leisure time.
Leisure. Bush zaman.
Yeah, free time. They weren't just focused on immediate survival or production. They had the space to think about abstract things, knowledge for its own sake.
Wow, that's quite a statement about society and progress. It
Yeah.
suggests you need that kind of downtime for deep intellectual leaps.
It really makes you think, especially today, about whether we value that contemplative space enough. Okay, so if wisdom means knowing the causes, then we absolutely need to know what Aristotle means by cause.
Right. And he gives us his toolkit for this, the famous 4 causes laid out in Book Delta. He says the word cause or reason actually has 4 distinct meanings.
Exactly. Let's break them down. First up is the material cause.
That seems straightforward. It's the what it's made of.
Yep. The bronze for the statue, the wood for the table, the silver for the cup, the underlying matter.
Okay. Cause number 1. Material. What's next?
Number 2, the formal cause. This is the form, the pattern, the definition. It's the essence, the what it is to be that thing.
So for the statue, it's not the bronze itself, but the shape the sculptor gives it.
Precisely. Or his classic example is the musical octave. What's the cause of the octave? It's the mathematical ratio, 2.1. That ratio is the form, the essence of the octave.
Interesting. Okay, material, formal, third.
The third is the moving cause, or sometimes called the efficient cause. This is the primary source of the change or the coming to rest. It's the agent that makes something happen.
Like the sculptor actually hitting the chisel, or the architect designing the house.
Exactly. The father is the moving cause of the child. The person who gives advice is the moving cause of the action taken. It's the initiator.
Makes sense. And the last one, number 4.
The final cause, the telos. This is the purpose, the end, that for the sake of which something is done.
The goal. Why are you doing this?
Right. Why walk? For the sake of health. Health is the final cause, the telos of the walk. Why build a house? To have shelter. Shelter is the final cause.
It feels so complete, covering the matter, the design, the maker, and the purpose.
It really is a comprehensive framework. And it's powerful because, as Aristotle points out, the philosophers before him, they often got stuck on just one of these.
Mostly the material cause, right? Like Thales saying everything is water.
Exactly. They were obsessed with the stuff. What's the basic ingredient of the universe? Water, air, fire, whatever.
They saw the ingredients, like you said, but missed the recipe or the chef.
That's a great way to put it. It wasn't until later thinkers started really thinking about change that they felt the need to bring in something like a moving cause.
Like Anaxagoras with no size mind. Or Empedocles with love and strife.
Precisely. They realized, wait, stuff doesn't just rearrange itself. There needs to be some force, some agent, some mover making things happen.
So the 4 causes aren't just a list. They're kind of his way of organizing how we should investigate anything.
Absolutely. It shifts the whole game from just asking what's it made of to asking what is it, who or what made it, and what's it for. All right, now we get to the absolute heart of the metaphysics, the central concept everything else kind of orbits around. That's ousia.
Which we usually translate as substance. But the translation is tricky, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly tricky. Our sources emphasize this. Substance can sound a bit static, like just the underlying stuff something is made of the material cause again.
But ousia is more than that.
Much more. It's not just the underlying subject or carrier, what he calls the hypokaimenon. It also includes the form, the essence, the what it is to be. And sometimes it refers to the concrete individual thing itself, this particular person, this particular horse.
So it's like the fundamental being or reality of a thing in all its aspects.
That's a good way to think about it. And to really understand ousia, Aristotle introduces another pair of crucial concepts. These define how things exist. They are potentiality and actuality.
Dynamis and intellegia. Okay, potentiality.
Yeah.
That sounds like possibility.
Exactly. Dynamis. It's the power, the capacity, the potential that something has to be or become something else. A pile of bricks has the potentiality to become a house.
It's not a house yet, but it could be.
Right. Or a child has the potentiality to become an adult. An acorn has the potentiality to become an oak tree.
Okay, so that's dynamis. What about actuality?
Actuality, intellegia, or sometimes energeia, is the realization, the completion. It's the state of being fully formed, of having achieved that potential.
So the finished house is the actuality of the brick's potential. The oak tree is the actuality of the acorn's potential.
Precisely. The statue is the actuality of the marble's potential.
That seems incredibly useful for explaining change. Things don't just pop into existence. They move from being potentially something to actually being that something.
Yes, it solves huge philosophical problems about how change is even possible. Change isn't moving from non-being to being. It's moving from potential being to actual being.
Okay, I see the power there. And this leads somewhere big, doesn't it?
Oh, yes. This is where it gets really grand, really metaphysical. This distinction leads directly to one of the most famous and debated parts of the metaphysics, especially in Book Lambda. It leads to the unmoved mover.
The unmoved mover. Because if every change is a move from potentiality to actuality,
then something must have started the process.
Yeah.
You can't have an infinite chain of things moving other things, actualizing potentials.
Yeah.
You trace it back, and logically, Aristotle argues, you must arrive at a source of motion that causes change in other things, but is not itself changed by anything prior.
A first mover. Something that moves without being moved.
Exactly. And here's the crucial step. What must the ousia, the substance, the fundamental nature of this first mover be.
It can't have any potentiality, right? Because if it had potential, it could change.
And go. Its essence must be pure actuality. Energeia. No unfulfilled potential whatsoever. It has to be fully complete, perfect, eternal, unchanging. Because if it could change, it wouldn't be the first mover. Something else would have had to actualize its potential to change.
Wow. So the ultimate cause of all motion and change in the universe is pure, unchanging actuality.
That's the argument. And by defining the first principle this way as perfect, eternal, pure actuality, Aristotle essentially founds the highest theoretical science.
Which he calls
Theology. Because this study of the first unchanging, purely actual cause is, for him, the study of the most divine, the most valuable reality there is. The study of being itself leads ultimately to the study of the divine first principle.
So metaphysics and theology become deeply intertwined.
For Aristotle, they are, at the highest level, the same pursuit.
Okay, so we've climbed quite high here. We have wisdom as knowing causes. We have the four causes themselves. We have substance, potentiality, actuality, and even the unmoved mover as pure actuality.
We've built quite the structure.
But Aristotle, being Aristotle, throws in caution, right? Before we think we've solved everything, he emphasizes the importance of doubt, puzzles.
Absolutely. This is where the aporiai come in, the philosophical puzzles or difficulties he lays out, especially in Big Beta. He basically says, look, before you can find the answers, you have to grapple with the hard questions.
You need to understand the problem first.
Thoroughly. He uses this great analogy. You can't untie a knot if you don't even know how it's tied.
That makes sense.
If you just charge ahead without really mapping out the difficulties, the potential dead ends, you're like someone walking without knowing where they're going. You'll just wander aimlessly. Thinking through the aporiai is essential preparation.
And one of the really big puzzles he tackles is this idea of infinite regress, right? Can causes just go back forever?
Yeah, that's fundamental. He argues pretty strongly, no, they can't. The principles and causes of things can't stretch back infinitely, either in a series or even in kind.
Why not?
Because if they did, knowledge would actually be impossible. Think about it. We understand something when we grasp its causes. But you can't grasp the infinite. You can't survey an infinite series in a finite amount of time. So for knowledge to be possible at all, there must be a finite number of first causes and principles. There has to be a starting point.
So the very possibility of doing philosophy or science depends on assuming causes don't go back forever.
That's a huge part of the motivation behind the whole project, I think.
Yeah.
The drive to find those ultimate finite foundations.
And he also makes this really interesting point about us, about how we learn.
Oh yeah, the bit about habit is brilliant.
Yeah.
He says essentially, lessons are shaped by habit. What we expect, what we're used to, determines how we receive information. Meaning, if you're used to mathematical rigor, you'll demand proofs for everything. If you're used to learning through stories, you'll want examples. If you rely on authority, you might just want someone respected like a poet, he says, to vouch for it.
Wow. So our background, our intellectual habits actually shape what we consider knowable or convincing.
Totally. Things presented outside our usual framework can seem strange, alien, even wrong, just because they're unfamiliar.
That feels incredibly relevant today, with how different people approach information online, for example.
Absolutely. It's a timeless insight into the psychology of knowledge and belief. It tells us we need to be aware of our own biases, our own habits of learning.
That's a deep point. It's not just about what you know, but being aware of how you prefer to know it. Well, we've covered a lot of ground, from that initial desire to know, through Aristotle's hierarchy experience, craft, wisdom.
And nailing down those four causes: material, formal, efficient, and final. That essential toolkit.
And then diving into the core concepts, ousia, or substance, and how it exists through potentiality and actuality.
Which ultimately led us to the idea of the unmoved mover as pure actuality, the foundation of his theology.
The metaphysics really stands as this incredible attempt to build a complete logical system for understanding reality, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's a testament to the idea that we can figure things out, that ultimate knowledge might be reachable if we're rigorous, define our terms, and aren't afraid to tackle the really hard puzzles, the aporiai.
So let's leave our listeners with one of those puzzles to chew on, something that connects these big abstract ideas back to the world we experience.
Okay, how about this? Think about the first principles, the ultimate causes. Are the principles governing things that decay and die, corruptible things like us, plants, animals, are those principles the same as the principles governing eternal things, like Aristotle thought the stars and planets were?
Hmm. So are the basic rules the same for things that fall apart and things that last forever?
Exactly. If the principles are the same, then why the difference? Why does one kind of thing decay while the other endures eternally? How does the same cause produce such different effects?
But if the principles are fundamentally different,
Then what connects them? Is there an even higher single principle that governs both the eternal and the perishable? Or is reality just fundamentally split into these two different realms with different rules?
that's a really tough one. Does reality have one ultimate foundation, or is it inherently divided?
It's a core tension Aristotle wrestles with, and it's echoed through philosophy and science ever since. So whether you get caught up thinking about ousia, or the unmoved mover, or just this puzzle.
We hope this deep dive has given you some fuel for your own thinking, maybe your own peripatetic walk through these ideas.